Hi, welcome to Daily Living with Father Chapin, where we cruise through the Catholic liturgy of the Word, trying to dig out the deeper meanings of Scripture and how they might apply to our daily living. Yes, my friends, that is what we do. We're asking questions. Questions like, what do these Gospels mean to me? That's what I want to know. How can I take these Gospels that come to me each and every week in the Catholic liturgy of the Word and apply them into my daily living so that I can become a reflection of God's love to a world that, let's face it, doesn't know Him and certainly is in deep need of more love, don't you think? How can I take these Gospels that come to me each and every week and apply them into my daily living so that I can become a light in this darkness? I mean, my friend, take a look around. There's a lot of bad news out there. How can I take the good news of Jesus Christ and apply it into my daily living so that I can become a tool in the hand of God, making present His kingdom, not someday, but today and every day? That's what this show is all about. And I'm so glad that you could join us today as we celebrate this amazing gospel, the Epiphany of the Lord. Got a great show for you today. Looking forward to getting into it. But what do you say we quiet our minds? Take just a moment to kind of get into, well, the moment. Isn't it true? We spend so much time running here, running there, doing that, doing this. How often do we just stop and say, what am I doing? Where am I going? You see, the good news about the good news is that God is leading us. He is whispering His will into your life in what I like to call the quiet voice. Quiet voice is inside of you. It's inside of me. Well, wait, it's inside of you. It's inside of me. Isn't it true? It's like one of those eternal, well, it is eternal, but it's internal, that GPS system, sort of like in those cars, where the lady will say, take a right in 100 yards. Well, you know, sometimes we go left. Isn't that true? Well, the thing about those machines, those GPS things, is they'll reroute you. In the same way, the Holy Spirit will reroute you, because once in a while we take a left. We make a mistake. We get off the path. But the Holy Spirit will whisper us back onto the path. But the thing about the quiet voice is that it is quiet. And it won't raise itself up to compete with the cacophony of voices of this world saying, go here, do this, buy this, take a picture, you know, send it to your friend. So since it won't raise itself up, we got to dial ourselves in. And there's a lot of wonderful ways to do that, but one of the most powerful ways is His Word, because His Word is alive. His Word is, it's not like a normal book with words on a page. It's alive. It wants to speak to you today. We're going to school, my friend. Are you ready to be the student? What do you say? I quit yipping about this. Let's get into it. We got a great gospel today. And where's our gospel coming from today? It is coming from Matthew. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. When Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of King Herod, behold, Magi from the east arrived in Jerusalem, saying, where is the newborn King of the Jews? We saw His star at its rising and have come to do Him homage. When King Herod heard this, he was greatly troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. Assembling all the chief priests and the scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. They said, in Bethlehem of Judea. For thus it has been written through the prophet, and you, Bethlehem, land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, since from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel. Then Herod called the Magi secretly and ascertained from them the time of the star's appearance. He sent them to Bethlehem, and he said, go and search diligently for the child. When you have found him, bring me word that I too may go and do him homage. After their audience with the king, they set out, and behold, the star that they had seen at its rising preceded them until it came and stopped over the place where the child was. They were overjoyed at seeing the star, and on entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother. They prostrated themselves and did him homage. Then they opened their treasures and offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they departed for their country by another way. The gospel of the Lord. And what a gospel it is. This is Daily Living. I'm Father Chapin. You hang out. We'll be right back, and we're going to talk about this gospel and a few other things here as we celebrate the Epiphany of the Lord. Welcome back to Daily Living. Our gospel today really can kind of be best summed up with that phrase, can I get a witness? You know what I'm talking about? You'll hear this phrase often in preaching with Protestant churches, can I get a witness? It's really sort of, can I get somebody to stand up and testify to the truth? Because that's really what our gospel is today. Introducing the very first witnesses to what we now call Christianity. Tradition will describe these witnesses as, well, the three wise men or the three kings. Always seem to be three of them. Although actually our gospel doesn't specify a number, but tradition calls them three, right? Now, and it's funny. I remember several years ago I was in the Caribbean during the Epiphany on one of these parish cruises. And we were there during the Epiphany, and the islands in the Caribbean, they celebrate Epiphany, the three kings, with more fervor than Christmas itself, which is a bit odd. I wonder why. But anyway, back to these mysterious visitors that we see as we every year celebrate the birth of Christ. You know, the manger scene. I think everybody was very familiar with it. It's everywhere you look. It's generally a barn with a lot of clean hay, and well, there's Mary. She's always dressed in blue and white, and then Joseph right behind her, looking on the whole scene. In the middle, there's baby Jesus. But as far as Joseph, he's always right in the back. I remember in my own nativity set when I was a kid, we lost Joseph, or the dog chewed the head off or something. I don't know. We had to have a shepherd stand in for many years. Nobody seemed to notice. Poor Joseph. He always is kind of in the background. Reminds me a lot of my own father. Sitting in the back, kind of making sure everything's okay while the family unfolds in its drama. But anyway, back to this manger scene. You've got the baby Jesus in the middle, lying in what looked like a trough, doubling for a crib. Then you have Mary on the side with Joseph behind. Then you have the shepherds, and then the animals. They all seem to be smiling. You know, the donkeys and the lambs and so on and so forth. And on the top you have the star, right? But in the back you've got these strange characters. They don't really seem to fit in, you know. They look different than everybody else, and they're just kind of mysterious. They're usually wearing like a turban on their head, and they have these strange gifts with this animal, strange animal, camel. Used to love to play with the camel when I was a kid, because camel is a bit strange when you think about it. But anyway, these guys had these gifts, and there were three of them, and they were a bit odd, but as a kid, I loved the fact that they brought presents. The tradition will hold that these presents were gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And since there were three presents, then there's three people. In fact, not only that, they have named these three people as Melchior, Gaspar, and Balthasar, representing the nations of Babylon, Persia, and India. Now, some will say that the reason there's three, like I said, because of the three presents, and the presents themselves, you know, the gold, frankincense, and myrrh. That's a bit odd. Tradition will say that the gold represents the kingship of Jesus. The frankincense represents his priestly role, while the myrrh is prefiguring his death, because that's what they use to embalm. Now, which is, again, a bit odd to be talking about a death when you're in the middle of a birth scene. But anyway, coming back to the scene, these three mysterious characters, they've come to witness the coming of Christ. So who are these men? We call them magi. And how do they know about Jesus? Well, let's start with the word magi, coming from the singular word magus, which is translated into magic. Okay, they are pagan sorcerers from a priestly class coming out of Persia, modern day Kurdistan. Okay, they're extremely educated men. I mean, these are not normal Joes, okay? They're very well schooled in many subjects: mathematics, astrology, history, science, and of course, religion. They would certainly be very well informed of all the major world religions. They would have certainly known all about the Hebrew scriptures, or what we call the Old Testament, or the Torah. They were a part of the aristocracy, okay? They were part of, well, the upper class. They certainly would have been involved in politics, and, well, they were mostly known for governance. In fact, that's where we get the word magistrate. The original magi were kind of responsible for guarding justice, okay? Like I said, not average Joes. Okay, so with all of that said, let's talk about this. When Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, in the days of King Herod, behold, magi from the east arrived in Jerusalem, saying, "Where is the newborn King of the Jews? We saw the star at its rising and have come to do him homage." When King Herod heard of this, he was greatly troubled, and all of Jerusalem with him. So hold the phone there, Sparky. I got a question. Look, I can understand why King Herod would be a bit troubled, okay? I mean, he is a paranoid man. I mean, this guy, but all of Jerusalem with him, it doesn't seem to make sense. Really? I mean, what's going on? But anyway, it's a complicated answer. Why? Because life in those days, as life continues to be today, is a bit complicated. Of course, we know that Israel is a conquered land. Okay, they're a Roman province, a distant Roman province, and they share a border with the Persians. And, well, let's just say they didn't get along. Okay? They were not friends, they were enemies. Consequently, this border was very fragile, tenuous, a lot of tension. What that means is that it's highly doubtful that these magi, these three priestly royal class people, okay, carrying a lot of treasure, would be alone. Certainly they wouldn't be alone. They would be escorted, of course. And who would be their escort? Well, Persian soldiers. Not the kind of people you want showing up at your doorstep unannounced, particularly when you're a bit nervous, even on a good day. So that'd be a big problem, but don't worry, it gets worse, okay? These strange men coming out of the east, what do they say? Where is the newborn King of the Jews? We have come to do him homage. Like, there's only room for one king, right? And his name is Herod Antipas. And he's not a nice guy, okay? Herod is not a nice man, okay? He is a bloodthirsty, power-crazed, family-killing lunatic. The perfect candidate for Rome to kind of keep things under control. King Herod had bought his position from Augustus Caesar, paid a lot of money for it, okay? And he was, in a word, pathological, crazy. Although he was incredibly successful in politics, he was a deeply bitter man, okay, in his private life. Married 10 times, including the beautiful Harmonian princess, who he loved so dearly, but then he thought that she was cheating on him, so not only did he have her killed, but her mother executed as well. This guy killed his own 2 sons, okay? And then when he was very old, his favorite son found out that he might be plotting against him. I guess he was getting a little restless, had him executed, only to die himself 5 days later, okay? Which, amazing, paranoid. Maybe that boy should have had a little more patience. But anyway, Augustus Caesar was rumored to have said, "I'd rather be Herod's pig than one of his sons." Suffice to say, he was not a happy camper. So, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he's confronted with enemies, okay, telling him that the real king of the Jews is here. Your days are numbered. So you might see how that wouldn't go over so well. And let me tell you, my friend, when Herod's unhappy, all of Jerusalem's unhappy too. This is Daily Living. I'm Father Chapin. You stick around. We'll be right back, and we will continue to talk about this amazing gospel here as we celebrate the Epiphany of the Lord.
Hello, I'm Ted Rouse, producer of Daily Living with Father Chapin. I'm here in Werfen, Austria, and one of the things I like best about filming on location is that I never have to miss an episode of Daily Living. I just log on to www.mydailyliving.com. There I can catch the current and some past episodes of Daily Living. So no matter where you are, in West Virginia or around the world, just log on to mydailyliving.com.
Welcome back to Daily Living. Now, just before the break, we were talking about these mysterious characters called Magi. And they had just shown up out of nowhere, unannounced, in the middle of Jerusalem, and they're asking some questions. Questions, dare I say, that are making everybody a bit nervous, okay? Questions that are perplexing as well as disturbing. Where is the newborn King of the Jews? We saw the star at its rising, and we have come to do him homage. And everybody's thinking, star? What star? So Herod goes into crisis mode, right? Has a meeting in the Situation Room, because this is most definitely a situation. And they're all there. You got the high priest there, you got the chief priest, you got scribes, you got the astrologers, they're all there, right? And he says to them, look, what's going on? Tell me all about this star. So as it is, deep in the Hebrew Scriptures, there is this mention of this star in the Pentateuch, okay? The 5 books of Moses. This mysterious reference to a star that would be a sign of the coming of the Christ. Now, but nobody sees it. Nobody. So imagine this scene, okay? You got these guys, I mean, they're strangers. They're out of nowhere. They're pagans, okay? They're not Jews, but they had eyes to see. They had ears to hear. They were dialed in. They were awake. So they were very learned men. They knew all about the prophecy. So when they saw the star, they traveled a great distance at great peril. And I imagine they're thinking they're showing up in the middle of the epicenter of the Jewish faith, which is, of course, Jerusalem. And I imagine they're thinking there's going to be this huge party. They're going to walk into like a Mardi Gras situation, really. Massive. All the people to celebrate the newborn king of the Jews. But no. The long-awaited Christ has arrived. The star has risen in the east. But no. Nothing. It's just another day in Jerusalem. That's not what they find at all. They don't find anything because, you see, the people were so caught up in their daily living that nobody had taken the time to even look up. Star? What star? They're completely closed to the spiritual dimension of what's going on, and their entire focus is on the political ramifications of these strange men showing up from enemy territory. And what might this mean? It might be a trap. They might be spies. They might be planning intelligence for the imminent attack. Who knows? But it's interesting what Herod does. Okay, like I said, he's not a nice guy. He's an evil man. He's vicious. But he's not stupid, right? So what does he do? He did not get to where he was by being careless. He wishes him well, sends them off on their merry way. But interestingly, no escort, no spies, nothing. I don't think he was all that convinced. He just lets them go. But he does ask him one favor. He says, when you find the newborn king of the Jews, come on back, let me know, so I can pay him homage as well, which he will never do. Now, of course, we know that the Magi were warned in a dream not to return to Herod, so they slip out the double secret back way of the country, don't go back to Jerusalem, and that kicks off one of the single most horrific episodes in all of the Bible, which is when Herod orders the slaughter of the babies. Now, soon Joseph is warned in a dream to flee to Egypt to escape the wrath of Herod. And isn't it amazing? I mean, what's going on here? How God draws straight with crooked lines. I mean, think about it. You got Joseph and Mary, and they are in what can only be described as difficult situations, okay? I mean, they got no money, and they got this young child. All of a sudden, they got the king looking for him, trying to kill him, all right? And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, these mysterious men show up and provide them, through these gifts, an incredible treasure, a means to escape to Egypt, because you see, God will always provide the way. It's almost like he had a plan, really. I mean, it's not necessarily how I would do it. I mean, if I had the newborn king of the Jews born, it'd be in a palace. Really, silk pillows, nursemaids, the whole thing, right? Jerusalem would come in one by one on bended knee. Trumpets would blow, announcing the arrival of the newborn king, okay? Not some dinky little town of no consequence, surrounded by the squalor of barn animals, with a young couple trying to figure out what's going on with no money, and with some strange people showing up to provide gifts from a distant land. I wouldn't have done it that way if I was God, but I went to seminary, my friend, and I learned two things. Number one, there is a God, and it's not me, okay? So given that, what can we learn from this story? How can we apply this into our daily living? Well, I guess first we could start with this question. Obviously, the nation of Israel could not find Jesus. How do we find Jesus? Oh, we can believe in him all day long, but how can we find him? How can we know him? We can do great things in his name, but how can we actually find him? Our gospel today clearly demonstrates that Jesus seems to have this habit of showing up in the most unlikely of circumstances. I mean, consider our gospel. Who found Jesus? Well, you had the man born blind, okay? You had the woman at the well. You had the thief on the cross. I mean, just to name a few. It all comes down to this, my friend. Do you see the star? What can we learn from the people so caught up in their daily living? Bouncing like a pinball off the bumpers from the next thing, boom, 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 in your daily living, in your material world, that you never take the time to even look up. What can we learn from a people that are so engrossed in chasing the BBD, the bigger, better deal, the next great thing, either moving into the future or being strung by the past, that they're absolutely incapable of living in the eternal now, and they never take the time to look up. Good thing there's nobody like that around here. I mean, I think we can learn a lot. Look, I understand. Life is complicated. I understand. It might be difficult or a challenge to fit religion into a complicated schedule. But do you ever take the time to look up? Do you ever pray for his will in your life? Do you? Are you open to receiving Jesus in the most unlikely of circumstances? My friend, when you get past the glitter and the tinsel, when you get past the ho, 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 okay, what we're confronted with at Christmas is a tragic story of ruthless power and infanticide. I mean, that's the reality of the situation. Life has been and remains today on this earth very complicated and chaotic. That's just a fact. But ultimately, God will enter the chaos. He will put his finger into the middle of all the wickedness, into the middle of all the chaos, and provide through his Son a way for us to escape. A way with these strange pagans out of the East for the Holy Family to escape. That's what we can learn. And while this world might laugh at this fairy tale we call Christmas, at our man in the sky, look at where it has gotten now. Think about it. There is so much suffering and emptiness all around you, particularly this time of year. You know why? I'll tell you why. Because we are spiritual beings having a temporary material experience. Therefore, the material world can never fill that God-shaped hole that we long for. We were created from God. We're on our way back to God. Our hearts are restless until they find their rest in God. Okay? Jesus says, you're in this world, but not of this world. But we're in this world. So while we're here, what are we doing? Do we lose ourselves in this material experience to the point that we get so caught up that we simply never take the time to look up? My friend, do you see the star? And that really is the question, my friend, isn't it? Do you see the star? It really kind of all comes down to that now, doesn't it? That's a good question. That's a question that deserves an answer, my friend. And sometimes that star can show up in the most unlikely places, really. The question really is, are we spiritually awake enough to even see it? I know it's hard. We live in a world where we're constantly distracted by things. The world pulls us this way, pulls us that way, and all kinds, like a piece of taffy. But all the while, keep in mind, we are just vagabonds on this world doing time, trying to get back to the garden, my friend. And the good news about the good news is that God is sending you a star today to lead you back to Him. All we need to do is look up. You know, every day in this country, somebody does something nice for somebody else. Today, why don't you let that somebody be you? This is Daily Living. I'm Father Chapin. Hope you can come back next week and we'll do it again. Until then, I hope you let God live in your life. And I bless you in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit.